Okay, this is a quick overview of the feedback students get after completing formal assessments in Year 12 Psychology. Whilst this feedback is important, we do consider it to only be one mechanism for feedback. Students are encouraged to seek feedback throughout the whole year from a number of different agents, if you like, including themselves. We try and keep a theme happening where students are encouraged to have a go. It's okay to fail. We talk about these famous people here. They've all had famous failures and have been very successful in their endeavours after their failures. Each feedback cycle tries to answer 3 questions. Where am I going in relation to the goals? How am I going? And where to next? Okay, the feedback comes at 4 different levels. The task level, so very specific to that task, that test, that question, how did you perform? The process level, so what processes were used to try and achieve at this assessment task? For example, did the student undertake practice SAC questions? At the self-regulation level, how did they self-monitor, self-assess? How did they regulate their use of time leading up to the SAC? And at the self level, we tend to not give so much of this in formal assessments in terms of feedback, but the student will receive this feedback leading up to the SAC. Are they being positive? How are their habits? First step is that the student receives the assessment task with some model responses. They're then asked to compare their answers with the modelled responses. They're then encouraged to actually look at their responses, the model responses, and also a peer's responses. So they start to look at this together and try and work out 3 different questions. How can their answers be improved? What is the correct answer? And what other information is needed to meet the criteria for full marks? This tends to be a powerful little discussion between the students. Students are then asked to fill out a reflection tool. The link below gives you access to that tool. It asks students to look at those 3 feedback questions. So how are they going? How are they going in relation to their goal? And what would they like to work on next in relation to their specific improvements? The student then has a conference with the teacher. They have this tool in front of them, and then the teacher gives their perceptions on what the student needs to improve on. The reflection tool tends to keep this to a very specific discussion. A student generally has realised quite accurately where their weaknesses lie, and this discussion can be a very targeted discussion. Moving on to step 4 is an action plan. So too often in the past, the student gets their assessment, has a quick gander at it, and then throws it in the bin. What we try and encourage in Year 12 Psychology is that students learn from their mistakes and they make an action plan in which they're made accountable in the next assessment cycle. They need to look at what specific areas do they need to improve on. Sometimes this is numerous, so they're asked to just look at 1 or 2 specific areas. They're asked what strategies should they actually use in these identified areas. How will they know they've improved? And do they need to review their goal that they've set? A lot of students set unrealistic goals at the start of the year for their study score. So this discussion needs to happen within this feedback. This action plan will then be posted on the students' wiki and they'll be made accountable for their actions in the next assessment cycle.